Hi everyone and welcome back. It's no secret to anyone that EverSolo forever changed the way we look at hi-fi streamers of today. Everything started with their DMP-A10 and after playing with it for a while, everything else simply lacked the same app support, the same user-friendly UI, and also don't get me started with that screen mirroring feature which worked so much better on DMP-A6. Then DMP-A8 came along and it added a must-have feature, the active preamplifier stage, which worked simply outstanding with power amplifiers. And it seems that EverSolo is once again trying to impress us with a brand new DMP-A10, which feels like a DMP-A8 on steroids. So everything is better: the DA converter, the output stage, the clocking system, the power supply, everything really. The price went up, but not as much as I have expected. It right now sells for $3,999 or for 3,780 euros here locally, and it's the right time to check it out. First of all, the sheer size of this unit is dwarfing any other streamer that I have tested so far, except for the Rockna Wavedream Net, which is not exactly a streamer, but a Roon core and also a Roon endpoint. But this one is truly outstanding, how big it is and how impressive it looks down to the smallest details. Instead of choosing a brick-like rectangular shape, EverSolo added some diamond-like accents around the corners, and the volume knob also boasts a similar design language, highlighting the product placement in the DMP lineup. This is the crown jewel and the craftsmanship feels beyond reproach. Of course, we're dealing with a CNC machined aluminum unit having some clever design choices that not only make it cool after a day of non-stop use, but also classy and quite refined. Forget the wife acceptance factor, I believe that this one is asking to be touched and to be swiped. Thanks to that big 7.5-inch touchscreen, it begs for your attention all the time because it simply looks quite amazing. Its volume knob has a few tricks under its sleeve as well, rocking a colorful rounded display. You can program it to display the volume level, the album art, the clock, increase or decrease its brightness, or turn it off completely. The unit is built at high standards, having some thick aluminum plates all around, so yes, this is a CNC machined unit, and the same matte black paint that everybody knows already. It also uses 4 massive metallic feet with rubber pads that will absorb micro vibrations coming from within. Last but not least, we have this incredibly looking remote control. It's slim, it's so small, and I believe it will make a Cupertino-based designer blush with envy. It's great looking, as you can see. All of the buttons are functional, and overall this is a high quality remote control. Moving on to controls, DMP-A10 is very easy to use thanks to its massive touchscreen located in the middle. We have a volume knob on the right and a single on-off button on the left. It looks symmetrical, clean and easy to understand. Having a glimpse on its back panel, it will take some time to digest everything you see. There's a gigabit Ethernet port, an SVP optical fiber port, a single USB Type-B port that unlocks its USB DAC feature, a pair of coaxial and optical inputs, and an HDMI ARC input for the cinephile in you. We have 2 USB Type-A ports. There's an extra isolated USB port recommended to be used with third-party DACs, plus an optical and coaxial output in case you'll want to use it as a streamer. Unfortunately, the I2S output present on the DMP-A8 is no longer an option, and this time around the isolated USB Type-A port seems to be your best option. We have 3 antennas that are working as wireless boosters, 1 for Bluetooth and 2 for Wi-Fi, and on the far right you can spot a pair of RCA and XLR outputs, including 2 subwoofer outputs. A mirrored symmetry of analog inputs is also there, just in case you'll want to use it as a dedicated preamplifier. If you ever felt that the DMP-A8 looks kinda impressive on the inside, wait until you open the lid on the DMP-A10. The DMP-A8 already brought forward a clever dual hybrid power supply implementation, but this time around we have 2 linear transformers that power both the analog and digital sides of the unit, getting extra help from a smaller transformer. An impressive filtering stage can be spotted in the lower part of the unit, and the extra capacitance is a welcome addition, including 8 voltage regulators that have their own heatsinks for a long service life. At the heart of its digital to analog conversion, you'll find a flagship-grade ESS 9039 Pro DAC chip, together with the 3rd generation XMOS digital receiver that unlocks native playback of DSD files and 32-bit PCM material via USB. The DMP-A8 already had some decent accu-silicon femtosecond clocks, but the DMP-A10 is right now rocking dual oven-controlled crystal oscillators that offer a much more stable timing, operating at constant temperature and thus eliminating frequency fluctuations. The current voltage conversion stage and analog output stage consists of dual op-amps and tons of discrete components, including resistors and diodes, culminating with Omron relays. The DMP-A10 is also rocking a fully balanced, fully active preamplifier stage on both its RCA and XLR inputs. It provides 10 dB of analog gain, ensuring low distortion and impeccable channel balance when combined with that R2R volume control. Additionally, it features a wired or a wireless streamer, and of course you can use its internal DAC section or a third-party DAC connected to its USB, optical or coaxial output. It currently supports all of the major streaming options such as Tidal, Spotify, Qobuz, Deezer, Amazon Music and Apple Music. And the best part, it's Roon enabled and it can be used as a Roon endpoint together with a Roon core installed somewhere around the house, even if Roon Ready certification is still undergoing. If you never had the chance to play around with the DMP-A6 and DMP-A8, then you should know that these guys crafted their very own app that syncs with both iOS and Android devices. Absolutely every feature is at your fingertips. You can select the input and the output, access the music stored on the SSD, and there's the cherry on top. You can mirror each screen on your smartphone, automatically flipping into a landscape view. The connection between your phone and the DMP-A10 is done via Wi-Fi and it feels like a race car. It's snappy and it's lightning fast with zero lags or hiccups. This casting option is as solid as a rock and everything moves swiftly, and if Roon is your thing, then it effortlessly serves as a Roon endpoint via wired or wireless connections. Just ensure that you got a Roon server set up first. If you don't like tinkering with Roon or with third-party apps or with the EverSolo controller, then of course you can use Tidal Connect, which runs perfectly fine. Before I tell you a very good deal about its performance as a DAC, a streamer and preamp, let's zoom out a little and let's think for ourselves why investing in the DMP-A10, why it is still interesting and why I do think its price was justified. First of all, this is pretty much a modern smartphone with a big 6.5-inch touchscreen. It moves almost as fast. The EverSolo app feels quite responsive. Its screen mirroring feature works as intended, and of course, Tidal Connect feels smooth as butter. Secondly, it can work as a remarkable standalone DAC, and this feature I believe was improved considerably compared to DMP-A8. Not only everything is clearer, more resolving, there is less noise and less distortion, but I believe it compares with DA converters costing at around $3,000 US, so it's definitely along those lines with the Gustard excellent sounding X30 DAC. Thirdly, most DACs that have tried in the comfort of my home do not have an active preamplifier stage, but the DMP-A10 has it, and of course the volume control works in analog domain. And this is a very big deal because you can just add a power amplifier or two and start listening to music. This is all you need basically. Although it supports Tidal Connect and there are many other streaming services available, this is also a Roon endpoint, and since I'm a hardcore Roon user, this is a very big plus in my book. Going forward with this is not just a streamer, DAC and preamp, but also a music server and digital transport. You can add up to 2 SSDs, and the USB OTG port found on its back also supports external SSDs and flash drives. You can always disconnect from streaming and of course rediscover the joy of offline music playback. Last but not least, that component selection. is a chef's kiss, and it's better compared to what EverSolo has used in the past. Just look how beautiful everything is looking on the inside, and of course all of that will have a direct impact on the sound performance. Okay everyone, let's hit some eardrums and let's check how it sounds. I was very curious about the performance of its DAC section, and this is exactly what I tried first. I let it play as a streamer and DAC, and I followed it with a Chord Electronics Ultima Preamp amplifier and also Ultima 3 monoblock amplifiers, and also those Radio TD 2.2 loudspeakers that you can see behind me. The very first thing I observed is that it no longer has that infamous ESS Sabre glare that you can hear on many ESS Sabre DACs of today. That is no longer an issue, and that planted a seed of hope that finally this one will be a little more potent sounding everything else and not so much in the upper treble. And frankly, that's exactly what I've heard on the DMP-A10. It definitely adds more oomph in the bass. The sound is definitely a little fuller bodied, there is more punch in the bass, and everything else feels a little bit less exciting, including the upper treble, which personally I like very much. So this is exactly how I believe the Ferrum Wandla and also the Gustard X30 are sounding. Those are dedicated DACs costing around $3,000 US. And this one sounds very similar, so technical but also quite organic, lush, full-bodied, but without becoming bothersome in long listening sessions. I wasn't really gobsmacked by the resolving abilities of the DMP-A6 and DMP-A8, but this one is definitely providing more information, not only on the macro scale, but on the micro scale as well. There is simply more nuance, there is more detail, there is more music coming forward, and that you can hear pretty easily. You don't need to stress yourself too much. It almost feels like I'm listening to a high-end Delta Sigma DAC that offers very similar traits. The sound was slightly weightier compared to what I found on the FiO S15, which was a bit more neutral and less colorful by comparison. DMP-A10 tonality felt a tad richer, especially in the bass, which added more meat on the bone, and the sound was also pushed a bit deeper into the room, slowly expanding the soundstage in all directions. I recently reviewed the FiO S15 streamer, which definitely was more technical and more organic sounding compared to FiO R7 and also R9, but the DMP-A10 is definitely even more technical sounding compared to FiO S15, and the difference I've heard was immediate. This time around there is a slight beautifying filter applied on top with the DMP-A10, so this one is not just technical, clean, resolving, but also it can boost a little bit the color of the music, the saturation, and also the contrast of the music. So it's not going into that ultra-linear, dead neutral, almost cold territory, but it chooses a highly resolving sound, but without becoming emotionless. Another interesting effect that it had over my listening space, this room, is that the soundstage was shrinking, was expanding depending on the music that it was playing. So definitely it can work very well with live recordings, and if you want that big soundstage, you can do that pretty easily. Unsurprisingly, it also had a nice control over my speakers, having a better grip versus the DMP-A8, which had longer trails and longer decays. If the tonal density is something that you deeply care, then DMP-A10 shares a similar sound signature with the Ferrum Wandla and Gustard X30, putting a mild accent on the bass delivery, getting a fun and engaging sound at the end of the day. On the next day, I decided to remove the Rockna WaveDreamNet Rune server, the Rockna reference signature DAC, and also the Chord Electronics Ultima Pre-2 preamplifier, and let the DMP-A10 work as a 3-in-1 unit, as a streamer, as a DAC, and as an active preamplifier. The word active means a lot to me, and it should to you as well, and let me explain to you why. I tried, I think, close to 100, maybe a little bit more DACs around here, and from them all, most of them used a digital attenuator to control the volume that is losing bits of information once you start touching that volume control. A much lower number of DACs were using analog volume controls, much better, and a much smaller number we're using active preamplifier stages. I think I can count all of them. Those were DMP-A10 by EverSolo, Gold Note DS10 Plus, Nitpicks Audio Element X, and also Rockna Wave Light DAC. So these 4 devices had an active preamplifier, and it seems that the DMP-A10 is the last one that I'm testing. The DMP-A10 is of course using tens of resistors to control that volume, so this is an R2R volume control, and also an active preamplifier stage because it can work as an active preamplifier. And this, my friends, is quite a big deal, because you no longer need a separate active preamplifier that might cost you an arm and a leg, and the only thing you need is just a power amplifier or two, and that's what I'm going to use today. Letting it play as a 3-in-1 device made me realize how much cooler is the DMP-A10 to be used in a living room, where wife acceptance factor is a very important factor in your family life. After removing the cords Pre to and listening to music for a couple of hours, I realized that the DMP-A10 wasn't quite as tight and lightning fast as the cord, but it still delivered a natural sound signature, and the sound stage didn't shrink that much. Some sweetness was still propelled forward, and of course all of that removed any traces of listening fatigue. The sound wasn't harsh and the brightness never showed its ugly face, getting in return a highly entertaining experience that infused a bit more life into the bass versus any other frequency range. Listening to Paradis Perdu by Christine and the Queens, even from the first notes, the bass notes were tightly controlled, but strong and present in every corner of this room. The stereo separation was quite impressive, and even if tens of notes per second were playing mid-track, everything played in a distinct air bubble, never interfering with the next note. The sound wasn't just organic, but also quite 3D and quite airy, highlighting the quality of this recording. And the more music I was adding to the playlist, the clearer it became that the DMP-A10 was meant to be enjoyed not only as a streaming DAC, but also as a preamplifier as well. On the third day, I decided to use this one just as a streamer and nothing else. So of course the Rockna reference signature DAC went back, the Chord Electronics Ultima Pre 2 went back, and the only thing that I used is just a USB-A port, the isolated port from the DMP-A10 to my Rockna DAC, and I started listening to music. First of all, I want to mention that the Tidal Connect is working absolutely flawless, and that casting function is a lifesaver. Just bring a smartphone or a tablet and it's so much more convenient to browse through your music collection. I started listening to Terminal 7 by Thomas Stanko, which is an experimental chill-out mixing funk, tons of acoustic instruments and lots of percussion work. Although this seems like a simple track, the bass lines rising in intensity and then fading away slowly always keep you awake. This track is all about stereo separation and impressive holography, and also an impressive depth, and around mid-track you start realizing that this is no longer just an oversimplified track, as multiple musical notes start playing per second, and these sounds are not just interplaying with each other, but there's a clear and defined distance between them and your listening spot. On some not so impressive streamers, the layering never felt so strong, nor the stereo separation, let alone the naturalness and the flow of the music that I'm experiencing right now via the DMP-A10. This ability to portray a big scale of the music is usually reserved for high-end streamers with an over-engineered power supply, and that's definitely the case with the DMP-A10, and I believe that it simply removed the cloudiness and let me focus on things playing in the background pretty easily. I could see a clear picture of where everything was located in the room, and the interesting part is that all those crowded passages were no longer as crowded somehow. I still don't consider removing the Rockna Wavedream Net from my system. I mean, it's a Roon core and Roon is my thing, so I'll be using it for a while, but there is definitely lots of sex appeal with the EverSolo DMP-A10. And I see it working outstanding not just in a stereo setup, but also in a Head-Fi battle station as well. And now let's talk about some of the nitpicks that I found with this unit. I have just 2 of them, so not a lot of them. The first one is that we no longer have an I2S output that was present on the DMP-A8. This is quite a big deal for me because with some of my DACs that I used in the past, this was the best sounding digital input with the Rockna Wave Dream signature, with the Matrix Audio Element X, with the Gustart R26, with the Gustart X30. All of those sounded best via I2S. So you get my point. I really miss this digital connection, and I wish that the next generation DMP-A10 will be having this I2S output. My second nitpick is that for a proper room correction, you'll need to buy separately an accessory. It's the EverSolo EM01 microphone, an omnidirectional microphone that is compatible with both iOS and Android devices. You can do a less precise room correction with your smartphone, but don't expect it to perform at the level of EM01. This particular microphone will cost you an extra $70 or euros, and I wish it was bundled with the DMP-A10. All in all, the EverSolo DMP-A10 seems like a fantastic all-in-one with very little compromises. Its DAC section was pretty much on the same level with DACs costing around $3 It was highly technical, resolving, clean sounding, distortionless, noiseless, but also quite organic. And let's not forget that amazing sound stage, stereo separation and holography. Its active preamplifier stage was another surprise, ranking just one notch below the Kisses S4 and 2 notches below the Chord Electronics Ultima Pre 2 preamplifier, which mind you is considerably more expensive. And let's not forget how impressive it worked as a streamer and as a room endpoint as well. Of course, the streamer part is exactly as important as the DAC section and as the preamplifier because it's the inception point and it needs to perform at a very high level. In 2 weeks, it always delivered clean and noiseless sonics. Except for 2 nitpicks, the EverSolo DMP-A10 has all of the features I need, it's great sounding, and it's my pleasure to recommend it. Thanks for watching. Please consider liking and subscribing if you found this video helpful. Also, do check my written review that I left below, which contains additional information and tons of sound impressions. My name is Sando, and I'll see you very, very soon. Cheers!